Good day to you, folks. It's my pleasure to welcome back Calum Mackenzie to his third talk. If you've missed the previous two talks, they're on number 144 and number 151. I really recommend you go back there and have a listen to them. They're full of humorous anecdotes, lots of very interesting stories about the war itself, and just generally very interesting information. So do go back and have a look at those. Mac, it's good to have you back on for the third time. I think you're possibly the second or maybe even the first guy that's done three talks, but it is warranted, I feel, and your other two talks were well received. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Tony. No, I think Beaver Shaw did three talks, and so did Barry Jolla from SAS, and Hannes. Andre Schippers actually did four, so there you go. And I think John Gardner did three as well. Yeah,
very good company.
But yeah, well, in fact, it's embarrassing to be in the company of those guys. Those guys, their stories are absolutely amazing. You know what I mean? I mean, I knew a lot of what SAS and because I had friends in SAS and friends in Scouts, and still when you really hear what the operators were doing, it's like. I just sat there with goosebumps and I was going, oh my God. I just couldn't believe what those guys were doing. And they say how casual they were about the whole thing. Like, oh, just 180 Ks into Mozambique,
I know, it's amazing. But from my point of view, this visual history is like a tapestry, and every little thread on the tapestry is a different story, comes from different angles. But when you put them all together, it produces a lovely picture. And so we welcome, I want to encourage any listener to please come forward, contact me through Facebook if they want to talk. We'd love to hear from farmers and their wives and people like that, even ladies that man the WVS canteens. You're a great source of morale boosting sessions for us. And, so please don't feel that this is a chest beating exercise or some type of competition for a pat on the back. It's really just to fill that thread in on the tapestry. So yeah, please do carry on, Mac.
And the other thing that you said about the ladies, what I found out during the war was that the BSAP liked to use female radio operators because of their slightly higher pitched voice. When you had a lot of background hum and static, their voices were far clearer. Because I remember in continuous doing radio duty, and our jock was RAR, and this RAR guy was trying to give us all this that I was having to write down, and I could hardly hear because the voice was so deep. I could hardly hear what this guy was saying, and even the major looked at me and said, "What the hell is this you've written, Mackenzie?" And I'm going, "Well, that's the way I heard it." It's embarrassing. But Tony, let me start off with a very embarrassing admittance. I said there that we operated in Kotwa when I was with the D Company, when I was with the trackers, and Malseta. It wasn't Malseta, it was Penalonga. I mean, the 2 miles of. So I'm sure what I was talking about, the Protea Ridge Hotel, anyone from Tolly was going like saying, that's not a bloody Malseta. What is Mackenzie talking about? I'm bastard. so that's the first thing. And then the second thing, once again, I started off telling a story to actually get to an end point. And in between, no story was linear in the bush. Everything, there were so many things that happened in between. So on numerous occasions, I never actually finished the story, I didn't get to the crux of what I was trying to tell you. So, as I mentioned in my first and my second talk, when we were tracking with CJ when we were on pull-up and we shot that local, and the Air Force weren't very happy about uplifting her. The real story that I was trying to tell was that at the end of that camp, when we were doing our debrief at Jock Resort, Brian Minnie, because now this local who we shot, her son was a police constable, and she had just said that she was just merrily walking along there and we just shot her out of the blue, which was complete bullshit. But anyway, so Brian Minnie got the corporal who was in the tracking stick. He got pulled out and he was asked, okay, what happened? So Brian told the story. So in the middle of our debrief, this young spotty faced cop sticks his head to the door and says, "Speak to Corporal Mackenzie, please." So I came out into like the passageway there. And Gordon Guthrie, our 2RC, was there, and I think he was there because obviously the cops had said to him, "Look, who was involved in the shooting of this local?" So this guy said to me, this local never shot, what happened? So I told him the story, and this youngster says to me, "Bullshit." So I said, "Beg your pardon?" He says, bullshit. So I said, what do you mean bullshit? He says, your story is exactly the same as Brian Minnie's, as Corporal Minnie's. So obviously you two guys have sat down and you made up the story. So I looked at this guy and I said to him, have you ever thought that the truth would also be exactly the same? We wouldn't have to collude to make up a story if we both have the same story.
Exactly.
And this guy, and eventually Tony, I lost it. And the major had to come and I said, listen, if you think I'm going to go into the bloody bush to fight for a little shit like you, and the major had to come and like pull me away. I was about to bloody climb into this bloody cop and accusing me of bloody murder, And anyway, look, it wasn't long after that, but I don't think I had anything to do with it. But Walls then passed that thing that if you were to shoot a local, legitimately in crossfire, or they're running away, or they're feeding the tours or whatever, then there'll be no consequences. But so I don't think I had anything to do with that. But like I'm saying, that actually it upset me that somebody would think that I would just, I didn't shoot the local, but I mean that we would just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and as I'm saying, when the Air Force said to us, we're never going to do another one. So I was like, I was now stuck between a rock and a hard place, where I was trying to do the best thing possible, and then suddenly get accused of trying to murder somebody. And then the other story that I have to finish with, and the real reason why I studied the story about when we were going to move everybody into the keep, and we had to do our thing. When I was sitting there waiting for the tracking stick to come back, and the terrorists coming up to me and saying Indiani, and me having that contact at like not even 2 paces. We were all blackened up, and I can tell you after that, boy, the guys blackened up. We used to take earbuds, and we used to do our eyelids in our nostrils. The guys really shut themselves after what happened to me. But normally, after a contact, the stick that was involved in the contact or an ambush net, they wouldn't do follow-up or anything like that. Okay. But we had to carry on for rounding up the locals to get them into the PV, to get them registered. Because there was still us in the tracking stick, and we had a job to do. So what actually happened is that we woke up on the Sunday morning. This actually happened on Sunday night at about 11 o'clock at night. And then we didn't go back to base because, as I'm saying, because we still had a job to do. So all of Monday we were moving these guys, and because we were the furthest, okay, we ran right through till Wednesday morning. From Sunday morning to Wednesday morning, my stick was awake. We were the last stick to get uplifted, and we got back to base camp at about 4:30 in the morning. And we'd been awake for virtually 72 hours by the time. So I went off with 2 other guys, and I grabbed 2 cases of beers, me in the middle, one guy on the other side. And we just went to our little bivvy spot there. We just sat down with these 2 cases of beers, of 4 of us, and we were absolutely stuffed. And that Sergeant Major I was telling about, Brian Davidson, who had been in first batch with us, and was also in 8th batch. What a guy. And he came up to us and he said to us, didn't say a word about the beers. Of course, I put them all out to me. I marked them onto my account. And he said, "You guys on breakfast?" And we said, "No." And I think we must have passed out probably around 6:30, 7 o'clock. I mean, just passed out from being stuffed. I mean, you cannot believe once you've been awake for that long, you're overtired. You're like a zombie. I don't know how you even walk and breathe. You know what I mean? It's like an automation.
Yeah, it's automatic.
And Brian, this is the type of guy he was. Now, the thing, we were inside the keep at Rendezvous. He got the guys to push the vehicles out of the keep down the road before starting them up so they wouldn't wake us up. That was the type of guy that he was as a sergeant major.
That's amazing. That's good.
Think about that. So in other words, so we had Lindsay Chedgold, who was also that type of guy. We had Gordon Guthrie's 2IC, who was exactly the same, and then we had a sergeant major like that. So I mean, we really had guys who really cared for their troopers. Another thing I want to tell you about Brian Davis was that because we had the keep, and now we see these NTAF guys. They've got an FN and 2 magazines. And okay, the black guys have got 303s with boxes of ammo, and same with the guys with FNs. They had boxes, so it's fun. So once you find 40 rounds, now you got to try and reload. And plus those guys, Tony, they were traveling in those grey Toyota trucks.
Unreal.
Not mine-proofed, not ambush protected. You know what I mean? So those guys, they were brave bloody buggers.
Unreal.
So anyway, because now we're having scenes. So Brian, because he's the CQ as well, besides being the CSM, he's the company quartermaster. We are losing magazines and ammo in contacts. And I don't know if it was one of Santa's Alps or something, but they presented all these lost magazines that we lost in contacts to internal affairs. So we just made sure that those guys, at least, I think they ended up with, say, four or five magazines each. And that was just because, I mean, it was ridiculous to expect some guy to run into a vehicle ambush. And how the hell do you fight you out of an ambush when you're trying to reload a bloody magazine in the middle of an ambush?
Terrible.
So that was once again the type of guy that Brian Davison was. So that was that.
Just at that point, if you don't mind me interrupting there, we're in a keep about 45, 50 k's east of Vic Falls, which got revved by 52s. And these internal affairs guys, they had no bunkers to go into. They just had 303 rifles. And, the next morning I picked up 52 tail fins from rounds that landed around there. And those guys, they didn't flinch. They just fired away with their 303s. I tell you, I took my hat off to them.
Yeah.
Unreal guys. Yeah.
And as you say, I think because we moved those guys, well, it wasn't us, we physically moved them in, but it was internal affairs that were obviously running the whole show there.
Yeah.
The Hondi Valley went from being an almost liberated area, which is what the Turks wanted to do, into a transit area. Mm-hmm. Because now there's no longer locals there to feed them. Mm-hmm. There's no longer locals there to support them.
Yeah.
So in other words, what INTAF did by getting those guys into the protected village, into the PV, that made life more difficult for the Turks, because now they had to go right through the Hondi Valley before they got their first bit of free food, shall we say, and women and beer. Now, going on again about blackening up. The skin dye that we had made by this chemist in Mtali, I mean, eventually got it that it did come out black, but it was water based, and it was vegetable based as well. So it was actually quite good. But Tony, after applying that stuff, I mean, look, even when we used to go in for 6 days, I still had a little bottle with me because it needed to be topped up, because if you were sweating a lot, it would run through the sweat. But after 6 weeks of continually applying that stuff, your face looked like you had blackheads all over your face. Any creases in your forehead were all filled. Your knuckles have got underneath your skin. Now I'm working in the bank, and it looks like I haven't cleaned my fingernails. All the grooves in my knuckles are all in my face and everything. Yeah. So the one camp I decided, no, bugger this. I'm going to get potassium permanganate, Condy's crystals, stuck it in the bath, and I decided I was going to dye my skin permanently. Anyway, because my face was oily, it came out very patchy on my face. And my arse went black, because that's what I was sitting in most of it. I was sitting in about 3 inches of water. And when I arrived, everybody said, "Hey, who's it colored with?" Because I came out this funny kind of orangey brown color. It just looked like I had a very good tan. So that didn't work. So then it was back to using the skin dye again. Yeah. That first time we went into the Hondi, when we heard from the battle camp we're going to the Hondi, the Sergeant Major Brian Davidson ran out of magazines and just started drawing, because we heard so many horror stories about the Hondi, about how bad it had been. We ran out, yeah. And then the other thing I need to mention here was that Mike Sparrow, the guy who was actually training up the Shangan trackers, he wasn't like in charge of. He actually had a farm down in the southeast, I think. We trained these Shangan trackers up. So he wasn't actually with us. I mean, even though I said to him he was the boss, but he wasn't really in charge of them. So, and when I did that camp with D Company, when I was tracking with the Shangan trackers, the reason being is that nobody knew me, so I didn't have a stick to go to. So these guys just said, "Well, we've got the Shangan trackers. Okay, Corporal Mackenzie, you can be in charge of them." Because when I was going with B Company, I can tell you right now, Brian Davidson used to come to us and say, "Mac, have you got a full stick? Do you need a machine gunner?" And if I had 4 rifles, and I said, "No, Brian, I'm quite fine." If we only had 3 guys and there was a spare machine gunner going around, we'd say, "Fine," and the guy would come join my stick and that type of thing. So
what operational area was that, Mac?
That was, Tony, looking back now, I'll tell you what, I thought I'd spent about 18 months in the Hondi, but it was like close to 2 years in the Hondi that we actually spent there.
Yeah.
It was only that one camp with D Company when I was with the Shangan Truckers, where we started off at Kotwa, and then we ended up down at Penalonga.
And were you based up at Ruda the main time in the Hondi?
Yeah, we were at the Hondi. We were at the Ruda Keep. And as I was saying to you, the cop station plus the airfield was on the right hand side of the road, and the keep was quite far up from Ruda, from the police, and there was also the roads department there, because the first time we arrived in the Hondi, that road stopped as it came down the escarpment, as it actually hit the Hondi Valley. We said that Interazzi Falls was still up quite far on our left hand side, and that's where the tarmac stopped. And then it was dirt all, and I can't remember how many camps we did before suddenly we arrived, because I remember as well that first camp, we were out, Ariel were down at the Pungwi Bridge, and that road and it was still dirt there. It was dirt right through to. I mean, I remember going to Aberfoyle and going to Eastern Highlands Tea Estate, and that was also just, there was still dirt roads.
And it was just riddled with landmines. I mean, it was nicknamed Landmine Alley, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, we never had one biscuit tin in the Hondi.
That's amazing.
And yet I know of guys, my ex-brother-in-law, as we're moving from the platoon base, got onto the road and boom, had a biscuit tin on the road.
Oh.
That was bad, but I did continuous Bowley. Yeah. We used to call it the holy Bowley run. we started off there, and in the 6 weeks that we did that first continuous, there were 16 landmines placed on the Bowley road.
Yeah.
That was it, and it wasn't a Bowley that in Matibi that we had that biscuit in, but that was, I mean, that's where Pookie, there was a Pookie down there, you'd be driving along and you see this lovely little hole where the Pookie had picked up the landmine and then pulled the landmine out, so you'd be driving along, dodging all these very dirt. And the one trick that they did do, Tony, when the Pookie went over the cattle grid, obviously it would pick up, the sensors would pick up, they put a biscuit in right by the bloody, by the cattle grid. So what happened, of course, the Pookie goes across, and the guy knows every time he goes over, he gets the things here. Our truck comes, boom! I'm all shouting at the bloody engineer, "You bloody football! You missed the landmine." So I mean, the guys were clever, you know what I mean? But I think as well, Tony, in the beginning of the war, we were taught like these terms were like Superman and that. And as I'm saying, when we got ambushed, that very first camp that I did, that also helped to justify their thing, and the way that they used the ground and dead ground and stuff like that, the way they moved and that. But then, by the time 876 came, and then suddenly I realized, it's bullshit. They're just the same as us. And if you really get switched on and do your job as a soldier, you're just as good, if not better than them, because you're far more controlled in your shooting and that type of thing.
When you were ambushed that time, did you find that your training kicked in and the guys responded in a way that they should have done, or did everything just go to hell in an ambush situation?
Tony, that was a crap thing with those RLs. You were sitting on the back, everybody was facing in. Not like the 4.5s where you're sitting in the middle facing out.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you start to open up, you're going to shoot into somebody, some guy's facing you. Then the guy sitting on the right hand side thinking about it, how everything's happening behind them. So now how do they, so by the time you turn around, so basically it was a case of getting off the vehicle and then returning fire, because it was no good bloody fighting while you're on the vehicle. As I'm saying, you stood more chance. Also, funny enough, I tell you what, the guys I operated with, a lot of the guys had really good fire control. The guys knew in my stick that I would initiate the contact. I'd initiate the shooting unless I tell somebody else. I mean, like that time, for instance, when I shot, on 2 occasions when I shot guys at night, and the rest of my stick didn't shoot because they couldn't see anything. And that's how good the guys were. Instead of just throwing lead down and just, you know what I mean. So
what amazes me about armored personnel carriers, even modern ones today, the Russian type or the American or whatever, the guys climb in the back and they still sit facing each other, whereas the South African vehicles, they all faced outwards. You had all that extra firepower.
Yeah,
through little gun ports. I don't understand why that's not done today.
Yeah. And like you say, talk about reinventing the wheel. I mean, all those vehicles that we developed, and nobody was interested in using them again for mines and stuff like that.
Well, actually, quite a few of the ones that the Marines use in America are made in South Africa. So
I believe so. Yeah,
they were very impressed with the V-shaped hulls and that type of thing. Yeah. So carry on with your story. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, that's fine. So now going on about tracking with Smarty and those guys when we were up at Kotwa, and that's where that like police recreation camp was that we were based at. One other thing I wanted to, as I said, me and Smart talking shotgun and me just talking complete bloody bastardization of any language under the sun. And I think it was a time when we were tracking with just those black soldiers. We were tracking up, it was really hard ground there. And I said to Smart, because I could see Badrola, I said to him, Smart, are you sure these guys have gone this way? And he said to me, and yeah, man, there's plenty guys gone over here. And I said, no, man, Smart, man. And we're just going, and we're going, and we're going, and we're going. And there was a small little dry riverbed. You know, it was not much wider than a park, probably about a little stream, should I say, probably only about a meter wide. And there was like grass on the other side of it, but you could see where everyone had walked through. And Smart got there, and he just turned around to me, and he just looked at me, and he smiled. He just held his grass apart, and he just looked at me, and I came and I looked, and there was all the spoor. As if to say, yeah, you tell me I can't track. Here's a spoor, but here's a proof. So after that, I never once screamed. Are you sure you're on spoor? You know. But the other thing we had, which I thought was actually quite good. And then, you know, Tony, what I did learn about tracking is that it's just common sense, especially common sense. You know, like if you're walking, there's a great big tree or there's a great big boulder in there. The guys aren't going to go straight. You know, he's either going to go left or go right around it. And people have a preference which way they go. And I tended to find a lot of occasions you go to the right because now the tree or the obstacle is protecting you, and that's the way your weapon's going to shoot. If you go to the left and the shit said you're now trying to turn around and you have to expose your body before. So it's just little things that you just learn.
Did you find with trackers that the black guys had exceptional eyesight? They could pick up things that a lot of us couldn't pick up, but I found that their hearing wasn't as good. We could pick up things, you know, like 3 or 4 seconds before they actually heard it. Did you find that?
Yeah, and also, like I was saying to you that time we were tracking, and I said to the guys, because they'd been going north the whole day, and suddenly late in the afternoon they turned west, and we were looking into the sun. And I just had that feeling that we were going to get revved. It just made sense. You know, I mean, if I was going to ambush somebody, I'd want to ambush them when they're virtually blinded by the setting sun. And also, of course, their night vision is also very poor as well. I don't know if it's something to do with their diet or whether it's to do with the rods and the cones in their eyes. That's different to us. But on this particular thing, this is what I wanted to tell you. So now, one of our guys call up and they reckon, now we've got movement on this copy over here. So we come out. This is now we set up at Kotra. So we come out and we get to this copy, and we're looking at all the trackers. I mean, this whole tracking stick listening. And I said, guys, because I mean, obviously they could see us, we couldn't see them. They were on OP, and I said, guys, is this the right copy? Yeah. So we look. All the trackers are saying, no, there's nothing. It was a very rocky copy with quite tall, reedy grass, and I saw one broken stem of grass. So I called Smart across, and Smart came in here and looked. He just looked at me and he just smiled at me as if to say, like, "Well done, white man." and then we tracked down, and we came out of this path, and it was local kids, in fact. And Patson, the other tracker, he then taught me the difference between children, girls, and boys. The difference in the foot pattern, the way they walk. And, you know, so those guys were very, very nuanced with that.
Remarkable. That's remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that, I mean, look, what we learned when we were tracking, especially like even tracking with CJ, when he tracked that one guy, what the turds would do, like let's say 8 of them take off, they run down a path, and they've already got a crash RV or they've got an RV that they're going to. The first guy jumps off. Let's see how the 7 guys go past. Okay, then the first guy jumps off. The next lead guy jumps off. 6 guys go past until eventually there's only 1 guy left on that path. Because you haven't, because you're still on spoor, but you're on the spoor of the last guy, the rest have all moved off. So that was another trick that they used to use to try make tracking.
Yeah.
And I mean the one time as well, these guys who were tracking them and we stopped and we asked us local, and I said, yeah, he said that they're going down to the main road, they're going to go and catch a bus and go through Timtali for a beer drink. This was on a Friday afternoon. And we tracked them on a dirt road until we got to the tar road, and the bus stop wasn't too far away. So these guys wouldn't cache their weapons, and then they were going off into Timtali for a beer drink. So there we are, like all sitting going, nice one. We also go back to base camp and drink warm water, you know what I mean, type of thing. But
what's that border post down past Kotwa on the Mozambique border? Is that Namapanda?
Namapanda, yeah.
Did you ever get that far? Or do any ops around that area?
But that time when we tracked those guys for like, well, we tracked them for 15 k's, and then so we would, there was no roads in them, yeah. And then we had to walk 15 k's back to get on the trucks. So we walked 30 k's because the guys got revved. They bumped into them late at night, but we could only get there. We left Kotra at about 3:30 in the morning, to get down, and then we walked into these guys. So we were with them just that first night, because same story when they had this like mutual contact, they just went straight to ground there. You know what I mean? They were in like flatlands. They went up on OP or anything like that. And so anyway, we got them, and so that would have been it would have been south of Yamapanda, but it was north of where we were based at. But with CJ's tracking. When CJ used to track, I wouldn't say he ran. He didn't mess around. I can tell you that much.
Can you expand on what type of things you would look for when you're tracking? I know sort of rocky ground, you'd look for a little pebble that's moved off, exposed where the rain had anchored it previously, or in grass. Obviously, it's a lot easier because it's bent.
Grass and sand.
But what would you do in a semi-rocky area?
Well, once again, what you do is that you use logic. And you say to yourself, okay, fine. It's like, okay, look, agree with me. To a lot of occasions when a guy is just running, hell bent for leather, like I'm saying in my image, you're going to be able to clear a barbed wire fence. You don't expect that type of thing. But it's just like common sense. Like, you can see a guy can't go there, a guy can't go here. So and then you just keep on moving until such time as you either pick up confirmation, things like broken, bushes that like a branch broken off. Because like normally when those guys were running, they weren't trying to anti-track. They were just taking off. That was the worst thing when guys bomb shot. And then once again, you've got sport of one guy, and then to try and find the RV point is a bit difficult. But normally, as I said, it's just a matter of common sense of actually just like if you've got a sheer cliff on one side and you've got a path, and the guy's either going to walk on the path or climb up the sheer cliff, one of the two. So, but and then at all times, normally what you do is that you put the tracks between you and the sun. So in other words, you actually track with the shadows. That's what makes it easier to track.
Mac, I'd like to ask you if you can explain for our foreign viewers what anti-tracking is and what measures are taken by a person when he's trying to cover his tracks.
What you try and do in anti-tracking is that you try to make your what you're doing not look like human movement. So if you, like, for instance, if you're going through tall grass, if you've got a stick or a walking stick with you, you just flick the grass back, so you haven't got like footsteps as such. You can see things, but then it's broken up. So sometimes it fools the people into thinking that it's an animal walking with thinner legs, because when you walk with your 2 feet together, you actually create quite a pathway through. Things like for instance, when you come to one of the tricks that Sergeant Zingi taught us to cross a dirt road or a large expanse is that you take 2 flattish stones, put one down, or you take 3, put one down, step on it, put another one down, step on it, put the third one down, you lean back and you pick up the first stone, step on the third stone. Put the first stone down now, and that's where you cross. And when you pick up the stone, so actually all you just see is just places where there's been stones. You don't see any actual physical spoor. The other thing, of course, is confirmed prints. In other words, try and wear stuff that either your enemy wears, so your boot print is the same as theirs, so they don't think that it is. The other thing to do is to try as much as possible. I know this sounds stupid, but to actually use paths, because the locals and everybody walk on paths. They don't just go fumbling through the middle of the bush, because then straight away guys saying, well, what's all this stuff going through? What's all this grass being flattened there? What the hell's going on here? Why would somebody want to walk there when there's a beautiful path over here?
Can they tell the difference between a white man's bare footprint and a black guy's?
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah. No, even I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, because, well, on lots of occasions, what you had is that they got a much flatter foot because they've all been walking barefoot. The heels are normally very, 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 very cracked. And the other thing as well is that their toes are splayed because they don't wear shoes. Our toes are all bent and buggered and crooked from wearing tight-fitting shoes all of our lives. So
that's interesting.
And then the other thing the guys could tell as well, I mean, I never really had to worry about it, was by the depth of the heel. They could tell whether the guys were carrying a heavy weight. And the other thing as well, if you think that you can fool somebody by walking backwards, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because your heel goes in first, and then you push it with the toe, walking backwards. the toe goes down and it's very soft, and then the heel, there's no digging in of the heel, as you know. So walking backwards definitely doesn't help. Other things like what we do is if you cross the river when you're trying to anti-track, try and come out on a muddy rock, especially if it's not a muddy rock. Come out on a rock, especially where it's if it's in bright sunshine, and then the water that you leave behind will think so. So basically, what you do is that you make sure you didn't have any mud on the bottom of your feet when you climbed out. Stand on the rock. The sun would soon dry. So if guys go in and they're searching out the side. If you got into the river where they found you gone, and then they don't find where you've come out because you haven't left the definite trail. There's various different ways. But I mean, Tony, I'll tell you, there I was in 1994, so it had been 14 years after the war, up at Kariba with my brother-in-law and this young couple. They were up from Johannesburg, and I went off the boat. I was really getting hot, and we weren't catching much fish. I went off the boat there, and this young woman came with me, and I said, "Oh, look over here. Look where the buffalo have been down here, and they've been grazing over here, and then the impala." And then the hippo have come out. They've also been grazing at the side of this course. And then look over there. You see those marks on that tree. You see those high shiny marks. That's where the elephant's been scratching itself. You see the lower mark on there. That's where the rhino's been scratching itself. And she just looked at me, and she said, "All I can see is bush." You know what I mean? And to me, it was like like looking at a book. It was just So, I mean, look, by no means was I a great tracker, but I mean, when we did the Ricky course, I learned a hell of a lot about tracking.
And lastly, on the tracking, from my point of view, the question I'd like to ask is, what was the most popular formation you used? Some type of arrowhead where the tracker was up front and he was flanked by guys left and right to protect his flanks?
Yeah, So it was basically like a Y. It was like a Y formation.
Yeah.
Your two flankers were out ahead of you, guy on spoor, and the controller behind. So as I said, so you could do it like either a V or a Y as such. And then on a long track, on a long follow up, you were meant to rotate because but I don't ever remember tracking with CJ. CJ was always on spoor. Even when I was tracking, we didn't rotate because basically you would normally have contact that day, if you know what I mean. Either you lost spoor or you tracked into contact. But and then of course in thick bush, you were tracking single file.
Yeah.
The tracker, the controller right behind the tracker, and the two flankers behind the controller. And then of course the controller was having to act as the flankers. He was having to be the ears and eyes of the tracker, because the tracker's looking at. Okay, I mean, I must admit, when we were at Scouts, on Sergeant Singa, he had a swagger stick. He used to tap you under the chin. Look up, sir. Look up, sir. Just to hit you. Because you're meant to track as far ahead as possible. You know what I mean? Because so you don't track down at your feet. Track as far as possible, and that way also your peripheral vision gives you more view of what's happening. You know, like the last thing you want to be is look. Oh my God, there's an AK. Hello, Mr. Davis. You know, so, but as I was saying, so a lot of occasions we did, because I mean the bush is quite thick, so a lot of occasions you would track in single file.
Yeah, my last question, sorry, it's just occurred to me. Would you say that the white guys in general were as good as the black guys at tracking? Were there any exceptional white guys? I know there were a lot of them, but do you think, if you had a competition of 10 of the best black guys and 10 of the best white guys, would they be pretty even, or what do you feel about that?
Very good question. Yeah, when I look at a guy like Andre Rabi, a guy like Stretch Franklin,
Crooks, all those guys, yeah,
and I mean a lot of those national parks guys as well. I tell you, those guys can track, boy. It could be. It could be. I think it would be close. It'd be very, very close. Very close. A lot of the okay, I would say where the black troops or the black trackers had an advantage was that they could think like a black. Are you with me? You know what I mean? When we think something is totally logical, to them it would be no, this guy's gone and done this. You know what I mean? Yeah,
that's a very good point.
So this is the saddest thing, Tony, was that when we got those black troops in with us, I thought, great, now we're going to have black guys and they know what's going on and blah blah blah. And the one day we were down the Hondi and I saw this flag up for a beer drink. So I thought, that's a bit strange. It's not the weekend. So I said to this guy, hey, that's a bit, Maybe there's something going on there, because maybe they're using this to warn the tourists or something. And this bloke said, oh, I wouldn't know, sir. I worked in a butchery in Salisbury.
Yeah.
I thought, well, what's the point of having these guys here if they don't know?
Yeah.
So I think that local information that would really helped. Yeah. So from that point, but like I was saying, CJ, I mean, I wouldn't, like I'm saying, it wasn't a run, but it was a bloody fast walker. Yeah. I mean, this guy just used to take off for it. And I mean, I remember as well the time when we had, when the Hondi had become a transit area, one of our sticks ambushed. They were bringing out a wounded guy on a bicycle. So SB thought this guy must be important if they're trying to cut. He had a broken leg. I'm not sure if he'd been shot or whether he'd fallen or something. And anyway, they were trying to get him into Mozambique. It was quite close to the Mozambique border. So the guy sprung the ambush. He got there. The bicycle was still there. So anyway, so CJ started to track this guy, and we were follow up, and because we were going through, it was very rocky. We were going a single file, and this guy, obviously they were carrying him, and they realized that we were catching up to him because of the speed that CJ was going at, and they put this guy in a crevice in the rocks and covered him with leaves. And as I stepped over him, this guy had a stick grenade next to his head and pulled the pin in the stick grenade. So the stick grenade went off. I got a piece of shrapnel into my pack.
Yeah.
It didn't do anything, and the guy behind me got a splinter off the rock in his face. But you know, we were sitting there thinking that these guys so scared of us that they would rather commit suicide than be captured. I mean, the guy would have been looked after. So I don't know what their hierarchy were telling these guys what we would do to them. You know what I mean?
And committing suicide sounds cowardly, but it's actually a very brave act, and I'm surprised they did it, to be honest.
Right about there, yeah.
Mm.
Because obviously now you can't get any int out of the guy. You know? Because I mean that one guy that I shot when I shot those four guys, he was a main runner. He was actually carrying a medic pack, and he had an A4, one of these type of A4 booklet, and he was going on about and our radios were the overs, and then they were talking, and he said, you planted a landmine, and 30 guys were killed on this truck from this landmine. But well, we only carry about 16 guys on a 4.5, so I don't know where he got 30 guys from. They were shooting helicopters down, and well, I don't know what you're talking about. But it was actually quite a good book of fiction there, But I suppose that was the thing that he would take it back to the hierarchy and say, oh, look what I've done. You guys are completely out of bloody bullshit.
I think that was fairly common. There was a female too. She had a book captured as well, and like she shot down 3 helicopters in the last contact, and it's a bit of bravado for the top boys.
Yeah. And CJ used to poach out Anguilla way. And he says to me, look, the cops know that I poach. So he says, the shit thing is that, he says, I'll sit there and I'll shoot one impala and one shot, and the cops are out looking for me. So he says to me, come on, Corporal Mac, you can do it, man. Steal me a claymore or a mini claymore. I say, what for, CJ? He says, no, I'll put it there by the water hole, and when the impala come down, pow! That's just one bang, so the cops will still come up. Yes, now I've got 8 impala. So I said to him, no, CJ, because when the cops catch you, ask you, where did you get that claymore from? Oh, no, Corporal Mackenzie gave it to me. I said, you're a bloody bum, I'm not stealing a bloody claymore for you.
Yeah.
Because, of course, we used to, I mean, even when we were on OP, we always had claymores or mini claymores for this, because a lot of occasions we'd OP during the day, then come down and ambush at night on pars, or especially we were close to Mozambique, and try and nail guys and that. So. And then, of course, there were other times we would go out, and that's what we were doing. We were ambushing. We weren't doing OPs because the ground didn't, there was no high ground to OP from. We had a lacquer little medic in the Hondi, Corporal Ben. And I said to Corporal Ben, Corporal Ben, how come, all these other medics, all the white medics, all sergeants and colour sergeants, he says, hey, man, he said, before a darkie like me gets 3 stripes, I'm going to have to wait moons. He was such a lucky little guy. So CJ's system, because he was going to get married, I mean, John will know, and Hannes, I mean, I went to RI Barracks twice in my entire life. And so CJ was getting married there, and he was having the reception in, I don't know if it's an S4 or whatever it was. Because like I'm saying, he was ex-regular RI. So he says to Corporal Ben, you're invited to my wedding. So Corporal Ben said, no, man, darkies aren't allowed there. So he said, not a problem. He says, you get dressed up in your greens, and the first round of drinks you'll be a waiter there, you'll be serving drinks. Then after that, you take your jacket off and you come and sit with us, and you're coming to my wedding. That's, he was, as I was saying, CJ was a really good guy. Yeah, I looked after an corporal Ben. He was actually a very good medic. He's probably about the best medic I've ever. And he had a sense of humor as well. But that was CJ, and he's a crazy guy.
I think if you treated those guys with respect, the respect was shown back to you as well.
Yeah, like I said, when I sit to my trackers, us men will carry on and we'll leave the women behind. I mean, the 5 of them all bring me beers, and I'm like, whoa, I'm making more money than you guys. Don't worry, they would just thank you very much. And I mean, you don't say no. You do not take their gift, because then that's like a slight. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I thanked them profusely, and I said, "Come sit down. And we used to sit and talk, because, like I was saying, the number of times I was in the bush with them, it's just us. I mean, there's no good kind of being the big white buono, like, them and us. We all operate together. I mean, when you get shot, your blood's red just the same. So. And then, Tony, I wanted to talk about radios, and also how shall we say, my Sulu Scout experiences. Yeah, we started off with the A60, which was your normal radio. I'm sure you guys also operated with them. I don't know, did you ever hear of the A30 radio?
A30, that was the precursor to the 33 or 36 or something, wasn't it?
To the 63, yeah, to the A63. So it was also small. Load of bloody shit. It was absolutely useless. And when we were doing continuous, we were down at that stage. We were based at Chipinda Pools. I can't remember, it was a second or third continuous. And we had these A30s, and because the major had such a hassle getting hold of us, various, like the Lutes or various sticklers would carry TR-48s. So I had the TR-48, and that army pack is a load of shit. You can't put that TR-48 and it just pulls on you. So what I would do is I put the A30 into kidney pouch and have the TR-48 in its pack, because it actually came with a very nice pack, but there wasn't much you could put in it. So I'd spread some of my stuff amongst the other guys. I think I managed to tie my sleeping bag or my bivvy onto the thing.
It was the battery. Hell, that was a bugger. That battery.
Yeah. Now, the thing is that I'm carrying that plus a spare battery just in case, because those NICADs they were getting a bit Madonna in those days. As you say, the bloody battery weight was about 9/10 of the weight of the thing. So we had two scenes. One was just gone out to be picked up spoor going out of Rhodesia into Porcos. So I get on the blower. So they send out two Sulu Scouts, I think from Buffalo Range or Chipinga, wherever it was. I mean, Chiredzi. And these two guys get out. I think the one guy may have been Scotty Drysdale. I can't remember if it was Scotty. And he had a double magazine on and 2 water bottles. The other guy, they all had running shoes on and shorts and everything. Have a look at it. Yeah, this spoor is fresh. Let's go. Now they start running. So now we've all got all of our kit. We've got about 6 days or 5 days food, whatever it was in those days. And I've got this bloody TR-40 spare battery. We're running. It was late in the afternoon. I think it was about like 4:30, 5 o'clock. Like it was winter. We get to the border. And the guys have left us a nice little present on the border there. A nice big sudsy snake. They just plopped this big sudsy snake right there, as if to say, up yours. So scouts reckon, okay, fine, get on the blower, chopper comes, picks these guys up off the go. Now we can't move now because the major's been putting like stop groups in place to try and stop these guys getting out. And I'm running. I can't talk on the radio while we're running. So then I said, okay, fine, the guys are going over the border, and he said, okay, fine, here's the position of the stop groups. I'm saying to the guys, listen, it's bloody dark. I'm sitting here right on the border. I'm not taking down no bloody positions or anything like that. Shit, the next morning, get on the blower, and the guy says, Scouts are frozen in the area. You've got like 2 hours to get out of here. So now we're running all the way back, still with all this kit and all this bloody. Now your boy was out pissed off with Sulu Scouts. That was the one thing with Scouts.
Hence their nickname, the Eskimos. They're always freezing areas, eh?
Yeah. Then we had another scene where another stick, they only had the A30. They picked up spoor. So now I'm listening on the A30. So I get up on the TR, set up the TR-48, get up the TR-48. Guys, okay, fine. Now the A30 doesn't work with the chopper. So now they're trying to home the chopper into, because the chopper's flying on a 1 in 250,000 thing. So he can't. He's got a rough idea where the guys are. So he gets up there. So he says to the guy, okay, home me in. So I've got the TR-48 here and the A30 over here. I said, okay, home him in. He says, go left, roll out. Okay, roll out. But by now it's like And then, okay, go right, roll out. And they said, because of course, we tried to do this three-way thing. I think it's a miracle those guys didn't get bloody airsick in that bloody chopper because every time the guy was like going too far, because by the time I could give him the message roll out, it was like seconds delay. So anyway, they did. They found the guy. That was one funny thing. And then the other thing was that talking about Eskimos when we were at Chipinda Pool. So now, there's a nice crossing over the Sabi. I think it's the Sabi River that's there. And scouts came along with 4.5s, and they were all covered over. So our guys, we used to walk two guys either side of the little wheel, which is under the water. Scouts, no, they never do. Put the 2.5 into the bloody river. So we get told, give them one of your 2.5s, and they took the cover off it. The guys they're all dressed up in Frelima and all that type of thing. So off they were going. So now the end of the camp comes, and we haven't been this 4.5 hasn't been replaced. So now we're short. So now we're going back, and we're going to drive through the Matibi or whatever I don't know whether the bloody other one. We had to drive back onto the Port Vic Road. Well, Retenga, we were right down that way. So I sat on the roof of the 4.5, and the guys tied me with rope in case we had a biscuit tin, because now this is the famous only bowler had, with the MAG. I just sat there. I said to the guys, if some guy wants to come out with an RPG, I'm going to take him out of this MAG. And that's how we rode it until we got to the tar road, and then we could just, then we could sit on the back without having to worry about seatbelts.
Good grief.
So, boy, did I love to do scouts. And the other thing we had with scouts as well, when we were in Matasa, our guys they've got a sighting. And there were scouts there with Tony, it was a weird call sign. It was like, I don't know, Romeo Golf 5 or something stupid like that. I can't remember what that it was. And so we say to Brian, listen, we got sighting. No, we're hanging on to this, and I can hear this guy on maybe it was when I was on relay. I can hear this scouts guy talking. So they held 5 force over, and our guys got the sighting of that, and then the tours start to go. And then at the end of the day, this guy said, "Oh no, it's just locals. What they were doing, that they were gathering wood. They were going to make they were chopping down branches to make a mud hut. You know what I mean? So looking for all straight. So of course, what he was saying was that he saw this demo, and it looked like a guy with an AK over his shoulder. The axe, the normal demo. So I thought, oh, that's nice. Everybody hang back because you territorials don't know what you're doing, but the scouts are, the main guys. And anyway, so that's how much I love Zulu Scouts after that. And I said that army pack was shit. I used to I had my own pack made. I had chest webbing made. Didn't buy it. Hutch made it for us. Because Hutch worked for David Whiteheads.
Oh, right. We
had Airtex shirts made. We had camouflage shorts made. Properly hat, all made by Hutch. And so, because we were spending so much time in the army, why go around with crap kit? I mean, all this stuff was custom made for yourself. You know what I mean?
I did the same thing. I got a really nice backpack from Ferrydays, and then I adapted it to take all the little goodies that I wanted to put in it, and suit it to my needs. I agree with you that the army pack was absolutely useless. It used to hang down in the small of your back.
Yeah,
you were always walking backwards. Yeah, it was dreadful.
And the worst thing is that if you put that TR-48 in, like we're carrying claymores and ammo and God knows what else, you'd end up like your arms would go numb because it would just pull, and you would be totally useless. You know what I mean? So I mean, my pack was custom made. Radio went on one side. My sleeping bag was underneath. I bought a poncho. I used to use it. Got it from James North. It was a big dark green, like a thick PVC poncho. Instead of those raincoats. Those raincoats were a waste of time. I mean, couldn't do it because all I did is that the poncho, everything went over, and my aerial just used to poke through the hood. So everything was dry. All my kit would be dry. That was the other thing, Tony. We had another radio. I think it was called. I mean, the 863 was a bloody good radio. Excellent radio.
Before we go on with that, what was your favorite footwear? I could not get on with those black solderless trainers. I hated it. Man, they slipped. They would kill you if you went on a wet rock.
Never mind wet rock. Even just a rock at a slope.
Yeah.
No, that's it. And tell you the stupid thing is that the minute the locals saw that, they said, "Oh,
yeah,
there's a Maswajas," because the number. I mean, they say we only moved at night, and the number. number of times we would see locals doing 360s around the craft to see if they could pick up spoor. So, I mean, the one time I operated with guys, one guy had Adidas running shoes, had a little jock, my machine gunner barefoot. I had fellies, and Ben had magnatellos, those sandals made out of car tires.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
So half the time I used to wear it was a barter, like a Felskin boot. It was a suede boot. It was, it was above your ankle. It had about 12 eyelets. That soft crepe sole as well. Because, and as I say, I mean, the number of times we shot tours, they were wearing bellies. So that was you try and wear what the and of course Jock with his barefoot and having spent all his life on the farm walking out barefoot, his feet look just like a black guy's. So I don't think the locals would identify that as a white guy's footprint. So.
They also seem to wear shoes that had like a chevron or a number 8 on them.
Oh, that was that was right. It was especially up at Hurricane.
Yeah.
But we found as well that I'm not sure that was a Russian or a Chinese thing.
Yeah.
But we found as well that they had these Vibram, these boots with Vibram soles, VIBRAM. So very, I mean, you can still buy them. You can buy them here. It's a type of sole pattern or whatever it is. But footwear used to vary, but invariably, as I'm saying, because we didn't wear what you were issued with. Plus, I mean, you wore what was comfortable. You know what I mean? I remember I'd Stan Smith Adidas tennis shoes. So I just took that skin dye because I was white. I took that skin dye and I just dyed them. I mean, I also used to buy myself $1.90 Potter canvas stackies. They were blue. They were dark blue. Great.
I think this set us apart in our army from other armies. Other armies, I know that I was listening to a guy last night, Ken Gourdet. Yeah. When he fought with the South Africans, he said they were incredibly disciplined and they had to follow all the rules.
Yeah.
Well, we sort of didn't. We just did our own thing with our clobber. And I think that did sort of set us apart.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And I think, I tell you, if you're walking long distances, the last thing you want is uncomfortable shoes. The last thing you want is things to stuff your feet up. So, from that point of view, I mean, it's like, for instance, when I did my recce course, I mean, hell, those guys, Joe and Laurie Ryan, Shane Laurie Ryan. I mean, I'm sure Hannes would know Laurie because he was a professional hunter. But the one guy, Calum, he was a BCR. And the story I heard, once again, just like CJ, I can't confirm it, but I heard it from, I'm not sure it was Joe Holmes or Wes Hawley told me. Calum Forsyth had gone to Scouts selection and passed it. And when the guys were going to go up to Kariba Heights for a few drinks, all the guys had passed it. He was packing up his kit and he was going. So the instructor said to him, "Where are you going?" He said, "No, I came here to see if you guys could teach me anything, and you guys could teach me bugger all." This guy could track. This guy could track and talk. Yeah. And I mean, what we used to do when we were being taught tracking, you'd be in 4-man sticks. 3 guys would lay support. They'd walk for 20 minutes, and then you would follow with the instructor, and you'd obviously try and catch the guys 10 minutes. In other words, you have to try and halve the time, because that's the only way you can catch guys. You're going to walk at the same pace as them, and you're never going to catch them. And Joe was with me this day, and this cobra was on spoor. And as I got to this cobra stood up, and I went to shoot it. And Joe said, "No, don't." As I said to you, Joe was an animal man. And what he did, he got down in front of this cobra, took his left hand like this, and he went like this. And he moved his hand off to the side, and the cobra followed his hand. And then with his right hand, he grabbed the cobra from behind. Boom!
Oh.
And then he says to me, "Okay, carry on tracking, Mackenzie." And I'm going along, and this guy's walking behind me with his bloody cobra. Now this thing's all not happy. And when we found the guys, he said, "Okay, fine, you set the cobra. There you go." And he just let the cobra go to go. And then that day when we stopped the food for the python that the locals had caught, and I said to Joe, "Listen, Joe, keep the thing away from me. I'm not too mad about snakes." And he said to me, "Tonight, Mac, I'm going to come put that python in your sleeping bag." I don't think I slept that night. I lay there. I said, "Joe Holmes comes with that bloody python. I'm going to shoot the python and shoot Joe Holmes." And I mean, he was just such an incredible guy. And we did op egg, much the same as as the Zulu Scouts. So I had friends from Scouts, so I knew exactly what to do. Go and gather firewood, go and pull green leaves, dig a bloody hole. They gave you half match for the head, and a striker lit your fire, got the eggs going, well, got the thing going the whole night. Then the next morning they came and they got everybody lined up and they broke the egg over everyone's head. And if your egg was cooked, then you could eat it. If it wasn't, you had all fried egg in your head.
Yeah.
Then that morning, they then after OPEC, we were going to start a survival. So what they did is that they shot a kudu cow to show us that you could survive off without having to cook anything like that. So what they did is that they took the grass out of the kudu cow. And there's big, like 1 liter bloody enamel tin mugs, squeezed all this green grass into this thing. So we all lined up and we had to have a sip of this once again. That wasn't too bad. But then they gave me, it was a bit of the liver, the raw liver. That was fine. I didn't mind it. But then they cut a bit of the stomach out, the white intestines, like tripe. And Tony, I tell you what, I had a basketball player in my throat. I stuck it on my tongue. I saw this little hand just, and I lorry around, said, open your mouth, Mackenzie, open it. And there was this piece of tripe on my tongue. Just swallow. So I do after about 3 swallows, I got this thing down. And now we're going into this, like a little holding area, little fenced off area. Because now we're going to go out to go do our 10-day survival. And there was this guy, he played prop for Rhodesia, Yanni Nisa, big fist. Like he said to me, how did it go back? And I said, it was all right. I didn't mind. And as I smiled, he saw the blood from the liver on my teeth. So he just helped. I thought, well, I tell you what, if this big Rhodesian rugby player can suck it up. So I went out and enjoyed it. And then we went out to 10 days survival on completely empty stomachs because we had been taught like that side. So I managed to catch 3 barbel and Hutch trapped a little diker thing. And then what happened was that at any time you could pull out. Much the same like scouts. You could if you would. And this little black guy called Nyoni, he was in another stick, and he actually came past our base camp. And we were all sitting there because we had a fire going and we cooked these steaks off this diker. And Nyoni came past, and I think he told the instructors, those guys, they switched on. As soon as Nyoni left, they just gapped it because they knew that the instructors would say to Nyoni, you can't get back on the truck until you tell us where your base camp is. So while the 2 instructors were looking for their base camp, they found our base camp. So they took our shoes and they took our t-shirts off us. So all we had was FN radio and Walada radio and shorts. That was it. And we spent, that was on day 8. So right up into on day 10 when we finished up, they gave us our t-shirts and our shorts back. And I must tell you, Tony, you do not know how much stuff crawls over you when you're not wearing a t-shirt. You're trying to sleep at night and you're lying there.
Horrible.
I tell you what. And then we finished those 10 days. They then said to us, and I knew something was going on because the guys came around with salt tablets. They gave us salt tablets and a cup of water. And they said, okay, guys, that's just the first bit of the survival. We're now going to do another 8 days survival. And some of the guys said, no, stuff this, that's it. And I think we started with about 28 and we got down to about 12 guys. There was only 12 of us left at the end. And we had no option. We were not allowed to fail because there was only Hutch and I from Activat and a guy called Les Suster, who was he was also on the as an instructor. He was ex-SAS. And we were told that in no certain terms that we could not fail. So so when these guys came with this salt tablet, then I thought there's something really funny going on over here. So the guys who said no, stuff this, they got on the truck and they left. And when the trucks left, the guy said, okay, fine, we're not going to do that 8 days, another further 8 days survival, but now we're going to run. And we had to run with guys, and we had to lift guys and carry them and do sit-ups and press-ups, everything like that. And I tell you, Tony, that is when I learned, excuse me, it's actually your mind that stops you from doing things, not your body.
I agree.
I got to a stage where I had like a second wind, and I just couldn't. I just knew I could do this. It was just it was like almost like a form of euphoria, like you're kind of high. And I realized that it's your mind that says, "Shit, I've had enough," and your body can still keep on going. And I think that's what they were trying to teach us. There was that if you're negative, then you will stop yourself from doing things. I've always had a very positive attitude towards life. Yeah. Tony, you also mentioned about getting those little brown envelopes with your full quarter. Quite funny towards the end, because 8-Bat operated out of KG6 barracks. And once again, I can't remember this. This is probably late towards 70, 78, and definitely into 79. was that we used to sign for our pay, all that, all present and correct. At the same time, you signed for your next call-up. It was there. It wasn't. It was actually just a slip of paper. That's all it was. And on that slip of paper, it said, "This will be." And you had to take it to your company, so your company knew when the next call-up would be. Plus, of course, there was also a slip to say how much you'd been paid. That was to get to your company, so they would take it off your pay.
Crumbs, that was well organized. I never experienced that in 2RR.
It was just straight there, but you just signed that. Was it? It was all, this thing was like multi. It was like multi. It was like 3, and you just sign. That was it. And in the beginning of the war, when I was working at Standard Bank and other places that I worked at, they didn't give two hoots about your army pay. That was in your back pocket. You just got paid for the month that you were away. But then with Robank, because not long after I joined them, Continuous started. You know what I mean? So that was funny games. And they used to take it off. And they used to call it like makeup pay. And by the time I became a sergeant, it was a bit embarrassing because of course I was in for 6 weeks, and those 6 weeks was almost equivalent to 2 months of my pay. That's how poorly the bank paid you. And so you come back and the next month you wouldn't get paid because as I was saying, that 6 weeks pay came to more than your monthly pay. So you then had to make sure. Like I remember, as I was saying, 6 nights back at base camp, 25 cents a beer, and my bar bill still came to $161, and that was at 25 cents a beer. So convert that into number of beers, and you're only 6 nights back at base camp, and so in other words, as you came out of that call up, you knew exactly when the next call up was.
Yeah. So I'm amazed looking back now that you're talking about pay rates, that we could live off the money that we earned. I mean, I only got $125 a month as a full lead. I don't know what you got as a sergeant, but I don't know how the hell we lived on that.
And then, of course, the other thing you had to be really careful is that your wife didn't spend too much money, and then you came up, and then for 2 months there wasn't any bloody money there because you were overdrawn with that type of thing.
Well, these were the push and pull stresses of the territorials. We found it very difficult to plan things, didn't we?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, like the car would always break down when I was in the army. There'd always be that expense, and something would go wrong in the house and that type of thing. But Tony, I think the worst thing as well was that doing all that time in the bush, and then that very last camp that we did, we went to, I think it was Assembly Point Echo. Somebody look, Mike Norton or those guys might know. I think it was up at St. Barbara's Mission up in Mutasa. And I remember we had a chat, some brigadier. It wasn't Tom. I don't think it was Tom Davidson. Some other brigadier from that brigade that was there in Amtali. And he gave us this big spiel and he said, "There's no way Mugabe's getting in to power, and the South Africans are standing by with the Mirages and all this type of thing."
That's right.
And we went there. And I was just carrying ammo. I had ammo and rifle grenades and bloody just ammo. And we waited there because we heard that we were going to take this assembly point out. And let me tell you, there wasn't a peep from the assembly point. But besides that as well, we were meant to have done a face down count of votes, just for numbers so we could correlate it, but we did a face up count. And we saw that Mugabe had about 75% of the votes, more than 75%. So we kind of like knew. But can I tell you, when the results were announced, there was not one single bit of celebration. So you tell me now, that's people that have voted for the guy that they wanted. Because all the Mugabe said to them, that, look, I guarantee we can stop the war. And all the locals, all they wanted to do was just go back to their way of life. They didn't want to have all this shit.
They were also told that if you guys vote on the second and third day, we're going to follow you home and cull you because we know that you're voting for the other guys. So everybody, long streaks on the first day, hardly any on the second and third day. He by that stage, I'd left the army and I'd joined the parties as a regular. And I was on a rapid reaction stick in Salisbury, as it was when the results came through. We knew before everyone else did the night before. And the reaction amongst our guys was, I don't blame them. Some of them just threw their rifles out the window in the barrack room and walked off, just left, just like that. Yeah. It was a shock to all of us.
Well, the worst thing was that in the space of 2 months, I lost my country, I lost my wife, and I lost my daughter because my wife decided, when I came back from that very last camp, she just said, "I don't love you anymore."
Good grief.
So we got divorced, and then I headed down to South Africa. So it was all in the space of after 8 years of fighting that war. Suddenly, I no longer had a country, and no longer had a wife and a child. And I arrived in Joburg with 2 suitcases and 600 rand in my pocket. That's how I started my life again.
Dreadful, man.
But you know, one thing, Tony, boy, let me tell you, bro, I'm proud to call myself a Rhodesian.
Me too. Yeah.
I'm proud to have fought for my country.
Mm.
And I reckon I should have a T-shirt that says "Born in Scotland, but bred in Rhodesia."
Amen, brother. I'll tell you. Yeah, I think one of those poignant things I ever saw was when I arrived back at Brady Barracks, having come back from Mozambique, and there were 3 cars in the car park, all covered in dust, thick dust. And I said to the MPs, I went through the gate, I always see those cars there. What's the buzz with them? Oh, he said, those are guys that didn't make it back. And we're still trying to sort out who's going to come and collect the vehicle. And that, you know, that just stuck in my throat, man. It was just something simple like that. And yes, losing the country literally overnight. It was awful. My brother, it's been wonderful chatting to you, because what I've liked about talking to you, Mac, is these little intimate details. I was fascinated by Ken Gooday's talk last night, you know, being an 82nd Airborne and coming to Rhodesia and all that. But to me, I like to hear a little bit more detail. He sort of made comments like, I did lots of ops with Silly Scouts. Well, what I've loved about your talk is it's been intimate, personal. You know, you can still smell the damp grass on your talk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's been wonderful. And I'd just like to thank you very much for coming on board.
Oh, well, thank you, Tony. Thank you very much.
And I wish you all the best for the future. And we definitely got to get together for a beer.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do it sometime.
Okay, Tony. Okay.
Yeah, well, cheers,
Bye-bye.